Thank you so much for joining us. We're very excited to get started with this next session on the CEDIA Smart Stage. I'm Jennifer Kent, Vice President of Research with Parks Associates. So pleased to be hosting this discussion with these industry leaders. We have JC Murphy, who's the president of Savant. You may be very familiar with him. We also have Doug Jacobson, the Senior Director of Residential Solutions with Crestron, and also Paul Williams, who's the Chief Product Officer with Nice North America. Ton of experience and insights to share with you. So very pleased to have them all here for this discussion on the future of home control. And thank you to CEDIA for putting on this conversation. So today we're going to talk about a couple different elements of home control and what we see as the future of home control. Various different points that are evolving when you think about controlling the home automation. First is the user interface, the control interface. How do users want to control their systems? What options are we giving them today? How is that going to evolve in the future? We're also going to talk about the role of the platform in home control, particularly as Matter comes out. If you had a chance to listen to the Matter session immediately prior to this one, you learned a little bit about that Matter standard. What does it mean for the role of platforms in the home? We're going to be talking about new sensors and use cases. What's hot? What's on the horizon? What do you need to be planning into your designs? And finally, of course, for the integrator, how do you provide value and continue to prove your value among the many DIY solutions out there today? So I really love to kick off with talking about again, in the future of home control and the thinking about interfaces. You know, Parks Associates surveys 10,000 U.S. households every quarter, and we've asked them, what would your ideal control experience look like? Different people, sometimes different people in the same household want to interact with their devices in different ways. And we actually got a very even split between people who said they want to feel like the experts. They want to feel like they're in control, right? Have the ability at their fingertips to be able to personalize and customize. The other half said, do it for me. Don't give me another job. I want as much automation as possible. Have the devices in my system know what I need. Very hard to design great solutions for both types of customers. So my first question, and maybe Doug, I'll go to you first, right? How were you thinking about the control point and the control experience and the evolution of kind of interfaces within that?
Yeah. Well, I think your chart describes it pretty well, which is there's no right answer. The reality is if you ask 5 people, they're going to want 5 or maybe 10 different things. So I think our role is to have open platforms. You know, we use APIs to enable other tools to provide different types of interfaces. I think people want to feel in control whether it's automated or not, right? So when you have things that are happening for you, it's magic until it's not doing what you want. And then it quickly turns to rip this thing out and get it out of my house. So you have to give people the option to know, okay, I want to enable voice control. I want things to happen automatically. I want to see what's going on and how do I control that? How do I adjust it if it's not doing what I want? The other challenge when you think about things that are happening, say, automatically or more ambient types of control is there's more than one person in the house. So I think we all have this vision over time of the house becoming more of a living organism, but you've got different people there. And you may have guests at the house. And so how do they interact with the system? So it's that balance of keeping things very simple, but also enabling that magic that can happen. It's about creating that platform and giving our dealers the choice to speak with their customer and provide that interface that they want.
Go ahead, Paul.
So interesting. I would bet that if we had taken this survey 5 or 10 years ago, this graph would look much different. I think we'd see a lot more people that want to have control but don't want it to be automated. I think we've changed that dynamic a little bit. I think customers are more attuned to having technology in their homes, first of all, and interacting with that technology. Now, to Doug's point, I think there's a balance between getting access to be able to control things as you want them, But we're heading into the new age of control. And that new age of control is to make that house more livable, to have it be able to understand, first of all, who's in the home, what spaces they're in, and then have it learn based on previous events that happened. When these two individuals were in the same room, in the same location, here's what happened. But make suggestions to the consumers. We found earlier on in early stages of smart home, you guys will go out and you'll program all these amazing things. I press the button 3 times, it does this. I press the button 4 times, it does that. Things are happening, and consumers don't feel in control of their home. That's also what they don't want. They don't want to feel like the home is completely running them. They want to run it. But we're heading into this new age. If the home can learn from how they live in the home and truly automate based on those habits, there's a huge advantage there. And the technology's finally catching up to a place where we can start to think about that world.
Yeah, and Paul, I think, and Doug, I think you guys are making a great point. One other perspective is we are seeing an explosion in the number of connected devices vying for attention in that home environment. And you look at the chart that you put up, and it's one of those things where 5 years ago, we weren't as concerned about the amount of bandwidth being consumed in the home. Well, we all learned that we started to work and live in our homes a lot more over the last couple of years. And you know, one of the focuses that we are really pushing the industry on, and internal to the company, is to make sure that the home is responding actively to the environment that it is confronted with. And the only thing that's going to increase that more is the number of connected devices. My wife brought home a Wi-Fi controlled crock pot. You know, something that's vying for attention on the network. Who would think that you'd have controlled devices like appliances as simple as a crock pot in your home? But 2 years from now, we'll be talking about another, 100,000 controllable devices that are in and around the area and the space we need. And that's really what's going to change that dynamic. And then you just do something simple. It's a simple matter of things that you didn't think were so complicated to make it simpler, because the home's responding to those, and things that are new that are new to you, people want to have control over.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, JC, I'd love to follow up with you a little bit on the way specifically that consumers are controlling different devices in their homes. So, you can control via an app, you can control via a panel, you can control via a switch, if it's a light switch, right? Certainly voice. The smart speakers are out there. There's embedded voice. There's all certain different ways of controlling by voice. And I think in the industry, we thought, this would be a voice first experience for many people. I think it's turned out to be one of many different ways of controlling. I think Savant's talking a lot about their new voice capabilities here. And so I'd love to understand a little bit about where you see the voice control experience and technology evolving.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I think that everybody in this room has had that experience where a voice-connected device that's connected to the cloud, listening all the time, responds to something. And you're like, what? How did that happen? Right? And then the next thing you know, you're getting advertised via your social media that you were talking about a Bermuda vacation. And you're like, come on. So I think there is a huge opportunity relative to refine how voice is curated in the home from an automation and control perspective. And that's one of the things that we are taking very seriously and looking at technologies to do that more non-intrusively.
Are either, Paul or Doug, seeing, especially for the integrators, right, dealing with high-income homes, certain households that maybe can't use voice or can't use systems that are listening all the time and are looking maybe for, an alternative solution?
Yeah, one of the things that's interesting goes along with working from home. There are a lot of companies, especially with the clientele that we tend to serve and you tend to serve, that their IT companies won't let them have voice control in their house that's going out into the cloud. Just won't let them have it. It becomes a privacy and security issue. And so there's a need for it still. We think voice plays an important part. As you mentioned, Jen, it's a part of the control. I don't think there's ever, I don't know an only voice world. Doesn't make sense. I don't think that the consumers have found that to be a good thing. But they want it to be private and they want it to be secure. So there is a place for these unique offerings that are coming out for voice control that doesn't require cloud. It can be done at the edge, doesn't go to the cloud, and then allows for the privacy and security to be there.
Yeah.
Good. So, okay.
Just one other comment, and something that I thought was fascinating. So all of our companies have had different devices that you touch to control. And they've come in a bunch of different forms, from remotes to touch panels to touchpads to your iPhone or your Droid device. And we partnered with GE Appliances to basically put the touch interface on their new microwave. Right? So you walk into the home, and as opposed to taking up any other real estate, I thought it was a really cool idea that they basically are now showing a range hood, an appliance company with a range hood with an incredibly interactive use of space, and moving that to a microwave, and we're having the UI up on there. But it got us thinking about the next round of implementation of how people are going to want to interact and where they're going to interact with their smart connected home.
Yeah, absolutely. Really interesting. One thing we do want to talk about is the value that the integrators, right, and the platforms have played traditionally is to make things work together. Disparate devices, disparate systems, designing a system to work together, definitionally is a different experience than buying point solutions at retail and trying to DIY it together. The Matter standard is one new initiative. If you were able to attend the panel before, so you heard a little bit about it, that is trying to address, right, the great fragmentation in home control in the smart home space. We've asked consumers, we essentially described the concept to them and the idea that there would be Matter certified devices out there and how important it would be for your home controller smart home devices to be Matter certified. And the majority said, of course, it'd be important, with 50% saying very important, and consumers have not been educated about this at all, right? So there is an appetite for the concept of, devices, of course, just working together. Now, regardless of how that rolls out and the details of it, it brings a great, interesting question about the role of platforms and the value of platforms and the value of the role of the integrator going forward, right? So, Paul, this question first to you, and then we'll walk over to Doug and JC. What's the future role of the platform in a world where maybe the interoperability piece gets a little easier?
That's a really good question. So platform, even more so than ever, continues to be important. And the reason why that's important, because you guys live it every single day. We are taking a wide variance of products that we have to bring in, and we have to make them work together, to have them communicate together, to be able to deliver use cases for our consumers. And they're all disparate products. I would love to say that any one of us is going to develop every single product a consumer is going to need, and you can just take our brand name and put it on everything that's there. That's not the case. We'll try to do everything we can. I won't speak for you guys, but we're certainly going to do that. But the reality is we need to bring third-party products into that ecosystem. And that's why a platform is important. And you have to have something that's communicating and coordinating those devices to work for that consumer. Otherwise, what you got is you go back to the old days of having 15, 16, 20 apps on your phone to control things, and that's not useful, and I know that's not the work you do. And that's why, as an integrator, you have the ability to go into a home and solve that problem for a consumer. You can bring all these disparate devices in and make them work, but the platform is the magical part of that makes it all work. Now, we talk about Matter, right? And there are varying degrees of where that's going to go. I look at it from this perspective. One of the things that I'm certainly challenged with in our organization, I believe it's the same for Doug and JC, is that bringing third-party products into your ecosystem, your platform, is not always simple. You have to get the API from that manufacturer. Then you have to understand, how am I going to consume that API? How am I going to make it work? How am I going to represent it on a touch screen or on an interface, on a remote control? How am I going to make that interoperate? And it takes engineering effort to do that. That's a lot. It takes a lot of effort, quite honestly, if you want to expand your ecosystem and your platform. If Matter is that easier on-ramping methodology that I know how to talk to that device, so all I need to do is bring it into the system, that on-ramping is valuable because now we can focus in on the unique use cases and making it so cool for the consumer. Bringing those things together. What can I do when I have these two things talk to each other, or where we're talking to them to make them work in coordination with each other? I'd rather have us spend our engineering efforts on that than trying just to make the devices talk together. So I look at Matter. If it's an easy onboarding ramp for us, I like it.
Okay. Listen, I agree with a lot of what Paul said. I mean, I think if our industry looks at it like our job is just to make product A talk to product B, and that's where our value is, we're in trouble. I don't think that Matter itself does anything to devalue the platform. Matter just enables products to talk to one another, and we look at it as that could be a positive thing. To Paul's point, we can bring in at Crestron. I'd love to make every product you could possibly want to sell, but the reality is I can't do that. And so if Matter enables you to get your job done, make your customers happy, and still standardize on a Crestron platform, for example, I think that's great. The platform, to Paul's point, is still critical there. The other thing is, Matter, obviously, it's just in its infancy. But even if you sort of look forward 3-4 years, the percentage of devices and categories that we put in our home that Matter will cover, it's still a small percentage. So it's never going to be a situation where everything's going to be plug and play. But if it were, there's so much more value that our integrators provide, from the design consultation, the professional installation, the management, the monitoring of the systems, that it's really not about making product A talk to product B, but oh, by the way, you're still going to have to do some of that for quite some time.
Anything to add, JC?
No, just the importance of, as an industry, really taking the standards seriously, because with that, you can clearly tie it back to the customer journey, and it does lead to better satisfaction when there is broader adoption of certain standards, and Matter can be one of those.
Great. Next topic, and we are going to allow for questions from the audience. So if you have a question, there is a microphone in the middle here. But we want to talk about new capabilities. What new sensing capabilities, new use cases, are really exciting to you? I have a couple up here. Really interesting to think about integrating EV chargers into the home and whether integrators have a role there. Networking, interesting new technologies coming out of the networking space, making sure the base connectivity is reliable, but also RF sensing, monitoring out to the perimeter of the home, and then healthcare. There's been a dramatic push of connected health devices into the home and rise in use of things like telehealth. So might be a little bit outside of the traditional integrator's role, but is that something that you see coming down the pipe? So JC, I'm going to start with you. What new emerging capabilities in home control and home automation are exciting that you're seeing right now?
Yeah, I think it's to start off, you think about the whole idea that the home can learn about what's happening to make the performance overall better. And we've done a lot of work now on the networking front with a partnership with Juniper, to kind of bringing enterprise class AI-driven intelligence into the home. But I think the other big thing is everybody to think for a second, and it's so paramount today with the natural disasters we're seeing, but electricity is like the air we breathe, right? We don't even think about it. We just go to their house and turn stuff on. There's no throttle on the amount of energy you consume, right? It's just there. We're passionate about changing that paradigm and bringing an energy management solution into the home coupled with renewables. And we think this is an outstanding category for this industry to begin to be educated on, and others. But it's foundational. Without sustainable power coming into that home, all the things that we do almost doesn't matter, right? Because talk to the crowd here and how many homes are out of power right now, can't see their cameras, can't turn on this, can't turn on that. So we're really attacking the foundational piece of the next evolution of the connected home, which is energy management.
Yep.
Yeah, interesting. Doug?
Sure. So for us, no surprise, sensing of all types is really exciting. I mean, things continue to get smaller, lower power. It enables new sensing technologies that can be running on batteries. They can be put anywhere. So we're really bullish on that. I mean, one of the use cases that I think various forms of technology can enable that is important. I mean, we've talked about ambient computing, personalization. A key factor of that is knowing who's in the house and where they are. I mean, you think about the things that can enable. When you pick your phone up and you want to play music, it'll play it automatically. We talk lots about, this industry now is talking a lot about lighting and tunable lighting. Well, one person may want one experience, someone else may want something else, but if we don't know who's in the room, how do you really deliver that? So I think you're going to see that become more prevalent. A key thing about that, by the way, is security and privacy, really across everything we're talking about, is going to become table stakes. I mean, it really should be today, but I don't think it is enough in our industry. We might like to think that it is, but I know, I'm not going to ask for a show of hands, but if I asked for a show of hands of how many customers have how many integrators here have basically unfettered access to their customers' networks, I'm sure I would see quite a few hands. And it's great that our customers trust us to that point, but there will come a day of reckoning. So that's something we have to keep in mind and get better on and continue to deliver. And of course, it's our job to help you to do that.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point that, when we talk about this ambient sensing world and as consumers, start to understand what that means and the sensors in their home and knowing where they are, right? It's less intrusive than internal video, right? It's not an actual video stream, so there's a benefit there. But it is a really interesting capability, and you have to build that relationship of trust. To Paul and then to our questioner. All right, good.
I'll echo Doug on the sensing capabilities perspective. Is there's some exciting technology that allows us, and it will allow us to be able to tell who is in that space and where they're at in that space. A couple of different things that are being developed today that I think have a lot of promise for us to be able to deliver that contextually aware space, that contextually aware home, which I'm really excited about, and I think that's there. One of the things you mentioned, Jen, was also health and wellness. So today it's treated as if it's a separate part of the house. I have sensors. I can get smart cuffs that will tell me what my blood pressure is. I've got this device that's telling me what's going on with my heartbeat, but it's not tied into my home. And I think where we're going to head with that, in fact, I'm confident we're heading that direction, is that home is part of that experience. What's the air quality in my home? What does that look like today? What is it? Can I change that? Can I fix that air quality? What's my personal health right now? And can the home do something to affect that? Circadian lighting that's on demand based on who's in the room, what time of the day it is, what's going on. And then being able to do things like, make sure you got high blood pressure? Well, maybe we need to play some soft jazz and calm the room down a little bit for you, right? So there's some things I think that are really interesting, which that's a little gimmicky, but there's some really cool things when we start to talk about having health and wellness built into that smart home and into that home experience that we'll start to expose as well. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, and to the questioner here, but also I was going to say air quality. I'm seeing a whole lot more out of you all actually on being able to sense air quality, water quality, really thinking about the healthy home. Please go ahead. What's your question?
Sure. So thank you guys for doing this panel today. I really appreciate it. The title of the presentation is The Future of the Smart Home, and I believe that more and more people are going to be switching to getting a smart home. So this is my year one in the integration field, and I'm looking at some big dogs in the landscape of the smart home. So I wanted to ask, what piece of advice would you have to someone who's in year one of their journey in terms of becoming an integrator?
So first of all, welcome. It's a great industry. We love it. I'm very passionate about it. So that's the first thing. So I think the biggest part that integrators can do, if you're new at this, listen to your customer. You will never be so wrong if you listen to your customer and then advise them. Understand how do they live in that home? What are the things that are important to them? Because all of us, we have great solutions that we can solve almost any problem that consumer has. But you need to understand what those problems are, because if you deliver something that's cookie cutter, if you deliver something that's based on what you think they're going to like, they're going to be miserable. They're not going to be very happy with what they had. So listen to your customers, spend the time to understand what it is, their lifestyle, how they live in the home, how they plan to use the home, what they do outside of the home. That's going to help guide you to where you need to go and the technologies that then you need to put in the house. And you can really pick on the things that are very critical to them, whether it's security, whether it's automation, lighting control, whatever it may be. You'll be able to deliver a solution for them.
It is a fine line, though, right? Because ultimately, you guys are the experts. You've done it. You're new, so you're going to get that experience. Yeah. You've done it time and time again. So it is a combination of listening to your customer and sort of applying what you've already learned works well versus delivering what they think they want. It's not easy. It's not easy. That's why it's, a great business to be in.
Yeah,
Takes skill.
And I think a final comment is show them, don't tell them. We've invested, and the industry's invested in tons of venues. And once, if you come out to Las Vegas and you walk through
Las Vegas.
Oh, well, come down to Henderson. You can walk through an experience center that even Paul would say is unbelievable. And you'll just say, okay, here's what's possible. You just show them and let the solution do the talking in a way. So it's experience, not talking so much about it.
Okay.
Really great question. Shameless plug here. So Parks Associates is a market research firm. We have a lot of research that is freely available through white papers and webinars and such. And so we certainly welcome you to kind of look at some of those resources too, just on an education side.
Awesome. Thank you all.
Yeah.
Really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, great questions. Thanks. So one thing we want to make sure we get a chance to talk about before this panel closes, and if there's other questions too, we've been given the go-ahead. There's a break, a 30-minute break to maybe go over a little bit, but is really, again, this idea of integrators proving their value with so many DIY options out there, and where some of those elements are that you can really lean into as this market evolves further. I have a couple up here, but I'd love to maybe start with Doug here on where you think integrators can really lean in to their value and where that's going to, that value and that purpose is going to be sustained over the long term.
Yep. Yeah, listen, part of the discussion we had here was about DIY products, and if we're really sitting here worried about DIY products taking over our business, then we're surely not thinking about it right. The reality is, and I think most of us know this, if you think about the technology that we take for granted, to the average consumer, it's completely mind-blowing, okay? So the average, yes, maybe some people can put in wireless audio, or maybe they can put in a Hue light bulb. But when we're talking about integrated systems, most consumers, A, don't know where to start, and B, have really no interest in that. So what I hear time and time again from our customers is their customers lean on them as a trusted advisor for basically all technology. So I think a few years down the road and what the role of the integrator will be, I don't think it changes much. What I think does change is the types of technology that we're focused on. So things that maybe are a little bit more, not cutting edge, but not as common as they should be today, providing a completely secure and private network, doing 24/7 monitoring and management, artificial intelligence, machine learning to automate your systems. Those types of things will be table stakes, and you'll need to be able to talk about those intelligently and deliver those things, and it'll be the next thing, whether it's health and wellness, which I know has been getting a lot of buzz in our industry the last few years, but I think most of our dealers are not really bringing that to market yet. So it's going to be a matter of, okay, educating yourself on the next thing, becoming that advisor. And even for those elements of the home that maybe you're not selling or installing, you're going to be asked to coordinate with the other contractors in the building, because the reality is, when you think about it, who's better than this industry and actually be able to manage these complex systems and ensure that they actually deliver the experience the customer is looking for.
Yeah, and JC, I want to go to you too here and then to a question here.
Oh, yeah.
You mentioning energy is definitely a good space that consumers are not particularly savvy, right, that may very much hold its value, and there's a lot of education opportunity there, especially when we see the EV wave coming and the need for maybe EV charging installation. There's a lot of opportunity for pro installers. So where else do you see the integrators really holding their value?
Yeah, I think it's clearly that's another market opportunity in terms of energy management and monitoring and backup power, going on that theme. But the other part of it is the whole idea about it's a services industry at its core, and folks are very comfortable when that you're not delivering a black box, that they have complete visibility into the performance of whatever they're purchasing from you. And a great analogy we use is think about the car industry. When you get into your car, you know everything about what's going on with the vehicle. There's a dashboard, it's very visible. We're thinking a lot about how to make that visible to the end user, and that is a professionally delivered service.
Please, your question?
Hi, thank you. Thanks again for this opportunity. I wanted to ask you, recently the biggest companies in technology that are actually the biggest companies in the world, like Apple, Google, and Amazon, are participating more and more in this industry. How do you see the inclusion or the interest in those companies in this industry shifting the industry and shifting the technology? And how do you see those companies influencing this industry?
Great question. Impact of the tech giants. Everybody wants to know. Any brave souls wants to jump in first?
It's a quicksand answer. So this could go on for a long time. So I think it's good they're bringing attention to this industry. It kind of ties in closely with this DIY. Yeah. With their solutions, consumers can get a DIY opportunity. They can start into their smart home journey, but they're only going to get so far. It comes to a stop of where that's at. I think it's great for building awareness for customers about what smart home is. Honestly, if you ask people if they want a smart home, if they're not familiar with smart home, most will answer no, because their home's fine. It does everything they need it to do today. It's only when you start to unlock what those opportunities, those value cases are for a consumer, that they then go, oh, well, that I want. If that's what you call smart home, then yes, that's what I want. I think those companies have the ability to drive market intelligence so they can drive awareness of what it is. But where we come into play, and then one of the reasons why I think DIY, you shouldn't be fearful of DIY. I think it educates, it helps people get an understanding what smart home is. But we're going to truly deliver the smart home experiences on the platforms we have. That's the only way to really do it today, and I see that for the foreseeable future. So I welcome them. I think it's great. Some of them are here today. I think that's fantastic. I think it's all goodness.
And I might just add that kind of one of the dirty little secrets of smart home is the product return rates are really high. Not everybody who buys connects them. They fall off the network all the time. Our data definitely shows that there are support issues with smart home devices today still. And so you see the tech giants actually partnering with technical support firms, companies that have the ability to roll trucks to homes, right, to provide professional installation, professional support around smart homes. So I think there's probably an opportunity for integrators and installers to have that actually be a piece of their business too. You know, being the technical support, local, trusted smart home guy, right, or gal, who can provide those services when somebody bought something DIY and it doesn't work as they like it to work.
If I could add one thing, so I'll echo Paul. I think it's great. There is a reason that the folks in this building have sort of built their businesses with the brands that are here. It's a symbiotic relationship, right? At the end of the day, if you're on a job site and something's not working, to be able to have a brand that you can talk to somebody and actually have them address your problem, you're not going to typically get that with the mass market products.
With that, I think that we are out of time. Thank you very much for your question. Thank you all for joining us. And if you'll please join me in thanking our panelists for their participation today.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Thanks, everyone.